Tony Messenger, are you there?
I am here. Good morning, McGraw.
Good morning. Thanks for
Hi,
checking
Tony.
in. You have an interesting couple of columns about this single mother that's getting a lot of attention. Why don't you give us the backstory on all this?
So her name is Janetta Macklin, and some of your listeners might remember that she was the woman who left her kids to go to work. She worked at a minimum wage movie theater job. Her kids are 2 and 5, and somehow a fire started in the apartment. The kids were injured. The fire department came, city fire department came, saved the kids. They had some smoke inhalation, but they've recovered and they're fine. And she was charged with felony child endangerment and ended up in jail. The nonprofit group Arch City Defenders, that has done a lot of work in municipal courts in this area, uh, decided to take on her case and realized, this is a woman living in poverty who faced the sorts of decisions that many of us don't understand. Many of us haven't been involved in before. And mostly they were upset that her cash bail was so high, it was $15,000, that she's stuck in jail and couldn't get out, couldn't, try to take care of the kids, couldn't try to improve her life. And she was just going to end up in prison over this, this horrible accident. Well, I wrote about her case when she had a bail reduction hearing, and a bunch of women from the community who had some empathy for her showed up and testified before the judge, and the bond got lowered. She got out of jail, and after my first column ran, a whole lot of people called in and emailed in and wanted to help her and pay for her bond and all sorts of things. Well, this incredible group of men and women and clergy and attorneys and people that just have empathy for how difficult it is for a woman born into poverty like this to get out of it have become a support group. Well, yesterday, a tremendous thing happened. She had a court date, and the prosecuting attorney and Arch City Defenders came to an agreement by which her charges will be dismissed as long as she continues on this 90-day diversion path that she's on right now. She's got a job. She's working at Jack Dorsey Square. People are working to get her an apartment. She's going to parenting classes and counseling classes and learning all of the things that so many of us take for granted, that, a young teen mom who was also the daughter of a teen mom who's in the second or third generation of poverty, the types of things that they just don't have an opportunity to learn. And so yesterday I had the opportunity to be at court, and Circuit Attorney Jennifer Joyce met Janetta Macklin for the first time outside of court and wished her well. And it was it was a tremendous story of hope and of the system working, of the system realizing that the criminal justice system isn't purely about punishment. It should not get in the way of people trying to climb out of poverty. And that'll be my column in tomorrow's Post-Dispatch. It'll be on stltoday.com later this afternoon. It's been really interesting because there are some people who are not empathetic to her cause. I get some emails and some calls from people that just say, you need to be talking about the family. It's the breakdown of the family that causes all these problems. But by and large, the number of people who understand, who have been single parents themselves, who understand that the poverty in our community is so serious in some sectors that it's next to impossible to climb out of it. And the criminal justice system sometimes gets in the way.
Tony, I'm so glad you brought this up as a topic of conversation, because while nobody would advocate leaving a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old alone in a apartment, that somebody's got to go to work. And what do you do when the resources aren't there? That's one. And two, lots of times these people who are in poverty, through no fault of their own, are they it could have been a weird situation. It could have been some type of violent situation where they find themselves with these two kids through no fault of their own. And so they're there trying to fight the good fight. And I learned this through my work with Nurses for Newborns, that there's nowhere to turn. There's nowhere to go for help. And so the fact that sort of people have sort of stepped up to help this one woman is great, but there are hundreds of women like there that aren't getting this attention.
Well, this is what's great about this one case. Jennifer Joyce told me yesterday outside of court that she is now going to order a review of all child endangerment cases currently handled by her office to see if there are other women like Janetta and men, other people that are really caught in the system more because of poverty, more because of circumstance, than the fact that they're criminals, that they don't need to necessarily be in the criminal justice system. And the other thing that I found in this series of columns that I've written, is that there are a tremendous amount of resources in St. Louis for people living in poverty, but it's hard for people living in poverty to find them. That's one of the things that I think the community has to find a way to work on. There are job training programs, there are transportation programs, there are childcare programs and parenting classes and all sorts of things that exist for free or for low cost for poor people. And what I'm finding in my reporting over the last few months on this type of issue is that the people that are in poverty are having a hard time getting connected to those services. And that's a challenge that the community has to try to address. The nonprofit community needs to understand that some of their services aren't reaching the people that need them.
Great point.
Boy, it could have gone in such a different direction. What's the status of her children?
Her children right now, this is where it gets a little complicated. So her children are being cared for by their father, who lives in the county. And as part of the criminal process to try to help get her out of jail, Janetta's attorneys agreed to an order of protection in the county because that would help convince the judge in the city that the two people that she might have theoretically been a danger to because of the fire situation, she didn't have access to them because of the order of protection. So her attorneys actually agreed to this order of protection. The problem is, I talked to Janetta yesterday. She's trying to work through another bureaucracy, the Division of Family Services. She has yet been able to visit her children. She hasn't seen her children since February 11th. The good news is now that she's out of jail and she's got a job and she has this document that says her charges are going to go away, assuming she stays, on this proper path for 90 days, they'll be able to take that to the judge in the county and at some point get the order of protection removed. And the belief is that her children will be reunited with her, but it may be a while. Just because the bureaucracy of DFS and dealing with two different courts and everything else. But she hasn't seen her children since February 11th. They are, by all reports, doing well and safe and everything else. And Janetta's expectation and the family's expectation is that she'll be reunited with them sometime soon.
Tony Messenger, St. Louis Post-Dispatch columnist. You can read this column and everything else he does at stltoday.com, and he's with us every Tuesday, Thursday. Tony, have a good weekend. Thanks for checking in.
Thanks, McGraw. Thanks, Kelly.
You got it. 8:20.